Hello everyone, Simon here. Welcome back to the architecture of Hitman, World of Assassination. We are currently in Marrakesh, Morocco. So when you start the level in the game, it starts you here. Presumably we entered this area from this gate behind us. There is more city back that way. Or it looks like there's more city that way. So where is Marrakesh? Where's Morocco? Let's go ahead and get into our... oh, whoops, don't look at that. Get into our browser, Google Maps. There's the map of the world, if we can load that in. So there's Africa. Oh, that's Morocco, look at that. Morocco is right there. Can we zoom in? We don't need that. And then Marrakesh is there, one of the biggest cities in Morocco. It is inland. And if we zoom in, it looks like that. It's a little bit difficult to see. But there it is. So the old city of Marrakesh is around there. Medina is the old city. Yeah, so it takes place here. You will see that there's quite a lot of desert. I mean, there's some farmland, irrigated farmland, but a lot of it is desert. So, it is in northwest Africa, as you saw. We have a hot, dry climate. And the history of Morocco is that it was ruled by the Arabs for a while, and then the French and the Spanish colonized the place. Well, they tried to. I guess they did. They colonized the place. And then later on it regained independence and it became modern-day Morocco. Before the Arabs, it was also part of the Roman Empire, and then before that part of Carthage. But as far as I can tell, there's no Carthaginian or Roman influence in any of the architecture or environments in the game. Like, we see a lot of Arab influence, and in fact not that much colonial French or Spanish influences. So there you go. The game level does not appear to be based on any specific location in Marrakesh. I did have a look. I tried to have a look around Marrakesh, try to find this area. This is not a real place. So as far as I can tell, this is a fictional place, but it takes inspirations, and obviously they've done a lot of research to make it look like a plausible part of Morocco. Alright, so let's go around the map anti-clockwise. We start off in this sort of a indoor mall. We have neon lights and we have electronics, which is interesting. It's interesting that you kind of come in to Marrakesh and there's like an electronics part of a market. I think they're trying to get away from the stereotype that you get in the West sometimes of like Africans. Like, they don't want you to think that Africans don't have technology. They have technology. Alright, just don't, just get over that. Get over that negative stereotype. But once you get out of that part, now it starts to look more like what Africa looks like on TV. There's so much for me to say about this. Alright, so first of all, what do we have? So we are in the old city of Marrakesh, right? As you can see, we have heavy masonry walls, and they're pretty high. So high masonry walls, kind of narrow streets. And the way this works is that the high walls keep the sun off the street. Because it gets pretty hot, right? It gets pretty hot in Morocco. And so the architecture and the city is designed to give as much shade as possible to the areas where people hang out. And you also notice that there's like a shade on top of the street, and then sometimes the street is completely covered. So we have like covered markets so that you can shop in relative comfort and not have to stand in the sun for long periods of time. Which would kill you, by the way, if you stand in the sun for long periods of time in the desert. So these walls appear to be in disrepair. Look at that. Look at the markings on the walls, and look at that, the paint's chipping off. Not too sure what's going on there. If you actually go to Morocco, it doesn't look like that. This looks like a war zone. This looks like a war has gone through here and they've shot up the place. I'm not sure why they chose to do that, because the real Morocco, the real Marrakesh doesn't look like this. And it's also relatively easy to fix, right? You just replaster the thing. And it's very easy to just replaster your building and not have it look crap. So like any real people living in a real city who have any money at all would not live in houses that look like this. So I don't know why the game chose to make Morocco look like it's completely run down and falling apart, because the real city doesn't look like this. Alright, so let's continue walking through the market. We might want to like just check out what's being sold right now. What is that? Spices? Oh, fancy. We're not here to do shopping, we're here to look at architecture. But the shops do, you know, tell us something about the city. We have lamps there, we have plates, alright, ceramics being sold. Dr. Pop. We have more lamps, and then we have a big lamp shop here. Oh, look at that, look at those lamps. This seems to be like a tourist thing, tourist attraction thing. They want you to... I don't know if the locals buy lamps like this, or if it's only the tourists who buy souvenirs. So we have a lamp shop. Those are pretty famous, I guess, in Morocco. Here you can barely see it, but the sign is a neon sign that says fortune teller. So that's a bit of a... It's a bit of an in-joke in the game. You can find the actual fortune teller. He's sitting around over there somewhere, but I'm not gonna do that. But I do want to point out, look at this archway, look at that. Look at those patterns there. Are those carved, or is that tiles? Those are carved in. So there's like little details carved into the archway there, but you notice how it's covered in the curtains? Like the drapes cover that up. I thought this was funny. Like sometimes you would have things in a city that a foreigner or a visitor would look at and say, wow, it's really cool. Like look at those carvings on that doorway. Whereas the locals, because they see it every day, they don't think it's special because it's just what they see every day, and so they don't even care. And so they just put the drapes over these carvings. Anyway, that's what that reminds me of. It's like we think it's cool, but the people who live here are not impressed by it. Alright, we have fabrics, very nice. And then we have more fabrics. Narrow streets, let's just make sure we keep looking around. I guess there's not too much to say about the architecture. I'll get a better view as I go forward, right? Alright, we get to here. Oh man, these walls. I wish they didn't do that. I wish they just have the walls normal. That looks like somebody has gone and shot the place up. It really does. We do have some of these buildings that are accessible, kind of. So at the bottom we have a carpet shop, right? And then if we go into here, into the staircase, we go up one floor, and then up another floor, and then up to the roof. Have you noticed something? Did you notice that house doesn't have an interior? It's supposed to be shop, residence, and then roof. We just walk past the residences directly to the roof. So there should be a house inside here somewhere, but the game just doesn't include that. We do have a roof though, and you'll notice that there's a lot of stuff on the roof. We have like rooftop living areas. Look at that. Chairs, seats. In the Middle East, and I guess also in North Africa, in these hot climates, you would set up these places to hang out in the evenings. Especially if it's breezy, it's quite nice in the evenings. How do I explain this? Okay, let me just go and explain the interaction between the climate and the architecture while you look at that gate there. That's a cool gate. So the stone. So okay, so the deserts are cold at night because there's very little cloud cover, and so the heat just radiates out into space. But during the day, because there's very little cloud cover, the sun shines down and everything heats up. The ground heats up, the stones heats up, the buildings, the bricks, everything heats up. So So the bricks start off cold and the ground starts off cold in the morning, and during the day it just absorbs more and more and more heat from the sun. And so over the course of the day the buildings get hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter. So in the morning it's fine. And then when you get to the late afternoon, things get really hot. Like the city becomes really hot, like down there, the street. Like the heat has been absorbed into the ground and then it's kind of just, it's like a frying pan, right? And so then at that point, you want to get out of the buildings. You want to get off the street, especially, and then you want to get out of the buildings. And then as you get into the late afternoon, sunset and evening, then the heat starts to radiate out and it starts to cool down again, right? And so in the mornings, you will kind of stay down low because the heat hasn't gotten down to the street yet. But then as the sun kind of gets to the top of the sky and it kind of shines straight down, it heats up. You want to get out of there and you get indoors. And then later in the day, even the indoors become hot, and then you get up onto the roof into the evenings to cool down. So that's the interaction between the sun and the architecture, and how you might want to stay relatively cool even in the desert. So yeah, so rooftop things kind of popular in this sort of climate. Alright, let's go back down. And let's continue walking around these little alleyways with shops. Again, we have the covered
We salute you, sir.
covered streets so that you don't get too much heat down here. Oh, these things, if you're wondering what they're supposed to do,
Hey,
they're
what's up?
pushing the buildings apart so they don't fall down. This is the old city, right? I mean, now that I say it, maybe you start worrying about the buildings falling down. so, so with old cities, these buildings have been around for a long time, and they're not always stable.
Get out of here.
Bro, what are you doing? They're not always stable, and so like if it starts to look like the buildings are leaning in, you just build these arches to push them back out again, so the buildings don't fall in. Now that you know that, maybe you are more concerned when you see these things in a city. You're like, oh my god. Yeah, look at these tiles. Nice. Very pretty, look at that. Colorful tiles. And then we step out of the streets and into the main market. Before I do that, I didn't notice this before. What is this? Plastic Consulate. So the Consulate Plaza, Rue des Bazaars. That's like the street of shops, or the shop street. I mean, the names are Rue du Bazaar de. I don't know what that means. But the names are not very imaginative. Okay, and then we get out to here. Ah, and then we have an open air market. Look at that. So this is cool. I'm guessing we're not in summer though. The sun is kind of low in the sky. I think we are not in the middle of summer, otherwise it might be too hot to be doing this. Ah, look at this market. Look at all that food. Bananas. Look at all this food. So this is the kind of outdoor markets that tourists love to visit. I wonder how often locals actually shop in markets like this. I guess they do. I guess they do. Alright, so I've done some research, right? There are some cool markets over in Marrakesh. One of them is this one, Jama El Fna. I hope I didn't mangle the pronunciation. It looks like that. Hey, look at that. Look at that. Notice the architecture is not. It doesn't have a. It's not falling apart. Oops. If you look at that, notice how it's cleanly plastered. There's not any bullet holes in the walls. So that's what the real Marrakesh looks like. Not completely cracked and broken and all that. But we have a night market. It's all lit up. Oh, look at that. Can we get more photos of this? Let's see. So we have a historic photo. Look, even historically, the walls are properly plastered. It's not just a new thing. Look at that. Yeah, no, you would just plaster your building regularly. You wouldn't let your building fall into disrepair like it is in the game. Everything's clean. Don't trust video games, by the way. Video games lie. Okay, so here's an even bigger picture. There's a panoramic picture of it. So that's a real market in Marrakesh. Not quite as dense as in the game, by the way. I mean, there are a lot of people, but there are enough spaces to move freely. It's not crazy crowded. In fact, can we just see? So there's a tourist. These are tourists. That's a tourist. I think these are locals. That's a local. These are locals. These might be locals. Is that a tourist taking a photo? Those are locals? Those are locals? Okay, so I guess, I mean, they're not all tourists, but there are some tourists hanging out. And I guess that's about it. Alright, so this is like one of the most famous market squares in Marrakesh. And if you look at the one in the game, same flavor, right? Seems like a fairly plausible recreation. Although, as I said, like the spaces in between the stores are a little too small, and it's a little too many people packed in here. But you know, video games, right? So as we're here in the square, let's also take a look at the buildings. So the buildings are very simple. Partly it's because it's like the old city, and it's not particularly like it wasn't particularly wealthy, and I guess today it will be protected because it's historical, right? So maybe they're not actually allowed to change how the city looks too much. We have smallish windows. We don't want massive windows because we want to keep the heat out. And you'll notice the buildings are all kind of square. They're square because they're trying to minimize surface area, so that because you want to keep the heat out as much as possible, so you minimize the surface area, you minimize exposure to the outside, so that you try to like keep the heat out. Like the house is kind of like an insulated box, or they try to be. And then obviously on the windows we have those awnings like that to again keep the sun from coming in. The architecture, like the main job of the architecture in this city is just to keep the sun out. If you can keep the sun out, you're doing a good job. And then here's the more market. I think that's all we have to say about the market for now. Oh, look at that gate there. The game puts a lot of these little gates in, that's kind of cool, right? Look at this. Is that gold leaf? There's gold leaf on that gate? I'm not sure how realistic that is, but it looks cool, right? Alright, so the next thing we want to look at is this thing. There's a big Shisha cafe here. Shisha is tobacco smoked with a water pipe. So it's basically tobacco, but instead of smoking it like Westerners do, it's a water pipe. The Shisha pipe is the name of the pipe, right? So we go into the Shisha cafe, and these pipes are the Shisha pipes.
Can we move on now? I salute you, officer. Okay, so you don't.
We have this area. Oh, fountains. So fountains in hot climates. When you spray water like this, you get evaporative cooling. That the water evaporates, and that cools down the local environment. So like fountains are kind of important, but they do use water, right? You're kind of using water to get the cooling. But you get evaporative cooling, and having a fountain in a courtyard or a garden again helps to regulate the temperature. Everything is about temperature, because it seriously gets hot, right, in Morocco. So even in the Shisha Cafe, the walls are completely shot up. I wish they didn't do that. I really wish they didn't do that. I guess this guy is serving tea. Serving tea and selling tobacco.
Tired.
And then through here we have a VIP area. Let me just show him my invitation. I am definitely authorized to be in here, sir. Alright, so in here we have more Shisha Cafe. There's a bar back there. There's another... I was gonna say fountain, but it's more just a pond, isn't it? Maybe there should be a fountain here because, as I said, evaporative cooling. Like, the pond helps a little bit. Although having the lily pads doesn't help because the lily pads block the sun and it slows the evaporation. I'm not sure about this lily pond in terms of temperature regulation. Let's go check out. So you have little booths, more private booths with more shelter in the VIP lounge. And I guess you can close the curtains if you want some privacy while you smoke. And it's just booths all the way around, basically.
Hey, what's up?
We have a bar here. We're serving alcohol. We have, I think, glowing green alcohol, whatever that means. What is that stuff? Why is it glowing? Alright, and then more booths, more booths. Look at the carving, by the way. Look at the carved pattern on these screens. Oops. That looks pretty good. So I think they just went to Morocco, or they got pictures of Morocco. I think they went to Morocco and just took pictures of archways and then used those as references to put in the game. It's possible that they got an artist to draw those, but that would be difficult. It would be difficult to make that look right if they made that up. Like those patterns on the arch. Alright, so that's the Shisha Cafe. Nothing too special. It's basically just a lot of seats and a lot of pipes. Let's move back out here.
Say,
And we have this gate. This gate. Right, so the city of Marrakesh, the old city of Marrakesh, does have a city wall. And along the city wall there's a series of gates. This particular gate is not a real gate in Marrakesh. But it is inspired by a real gate in Marrakesh. Let me go to the Wikipedia. So, Bab Aghnal is the most famous gate in the city wall of Marrakesh. And it looks like that. Right, you see this pattern? That pattern is basically that pattern there, right? You see that? That there? Is basically that. Well, pretty close. And then you see like these things on the sides, the double column there and the double column there. Oh look, double column there. And a double column there. Interesting. Except that there's like 1, 2, so there's a frame there and a thing at the top, whereas in the game there's a frame and then there's 1, 2, 3. So that's a little bit different. And the shape of the gate itself, the shape is like that, whereas here there's like a portal and, well, fake portal, fake portal, fake portal, real portal. Not sure why they did that, but in the game it's only just the one real portal and then everything else is open. Whereas in the gate, in the real gate, it kind of tightens down into a much smaller gate. So the gate, it is a city gate. It's a fortification. So I guess in order to have the fortification actually work as a fortification, they narrowed down the gate to make the entrance more difficult to break into. I guess. So in the game, for gameplay purposes, probably you want to keep that wide so people can run around. So that's the one in real life. And that's the one in game. Slightly different, but that's the most plausible inspiration for the gate in the game, if we actually go to this, let me just go Gates of Mirrors. So the walls of Marrakesh, if you're wondering, they look like that, right? And then you can like scroll down and you look at the gates. The other gates don't look as similar as to the one in the game, but you can kind of see the general style and the theme. Every single gate is different, by the way. Isn't that cool? So like every gate is a little bit different, but you do get the general sense of the architectural style, right? This one's a little bit simpler, and so on and so on. Gates and gates and gates and gates and gates, and none of them exactly match the one in game. Isn't that funny? But they're all kind of similar. So this is inspired by the real gate in Marrakesh.
This is getting weird.
I have been saying that for quite
As we
some
walk
time.
through, we come out of the old city, and there is the Swedish embassy. There is the Swedish embassy and the real city don't look like this, I don't think. I believe this is completely fictional. But beyond that, look at that. So you see that? It's a modern building. And there's no bullet holes on the walls. So the historic city is back that way. And then the modern city is out this way. If you look over there, that's also modern. So it's a little bit subtle, but if you pay attention, you can see like there's an old city and a new city. The Swedish embassy is aggressively modern. it's like somebody asked, how can you design something to look as out of place as possible? It is difficult to imagine something more out of place than this building. Look at it. There's zero traditional influence. There's zero Moroccan influence. It's just modern. Modern international style. A lot of glass, a lot of concrete. Alright, let's go inside. We're gonna go visit this place. And if you look at the walls, there's something oppressive about it. Like you see the concrete, like the concrete portals, these things, they kind of like frame the buildings on that side, and then that wall down there. It looks a bit like a prison. It looks a bit like a fortress. It looks a bit like a factory. Like there's something inhumane about all of this. Oh, and the glass roofs too. Glass roof in a desert is a bad idea because you have the greenhouse thing, right? All the heat gets trapped underneath the glass roof, and it just gets really hot down here. Glass roofs are a bad idea in Morocco. Yeah, so this architectural style, this motif of having the concrete portal frame the building, it looks like the building's being tied down. There's something very oppressive about it, right? Something restrictive. Yeah, like the building is being restricted by the structure. And I think that's on purpose, by the way. It's supposed to imply the colonialism or the foreign influence trying to oppress the locals, something like that. It does fit the story too. In the game, the story is that there's a corrupt guy hiding in the Swedish embassy. He stole a lot of money, and the Swedes are protecting him, even though he stole a lot of money. So that's the story. And so this oppression, this foreign oppression, is the style they're going for here. And look at that. Doesn't that look threatening?
Officer?
Let's go inside. Oh, and the whole building is just this floating slab of concrete. It's like a UFO. Look at it. It's like a UFO just landed in this place. It just doesn't belong at all. Some alien spaceship has landed in Marrakesh. It's kind of impressive that they made the architecture look like this, you know? It's actually not easy to make architecture look ugly. And it's not just any kind of like ugly. It's a specific oppressive, smug, insulting kind of ugly. It's like, I don't give a crap about you Moroccans or your traditions. Here I am with my spaceship, imposing myself on your city. Is that kind of ugly? It's yeah, no, it's great. It's great architecture. Not great as in you would want to build something like this in Morocco, but great as in it really like captures the essence of what they're trying to say in the story, the story they're trying to tell. Alright, straight into this really big ostentatious lobby. It's just empty space. You're this massive embassy and they don't even use the space, it's just empty space inside the building. Oh, it's so arrogant, right? It's so arrogant. You built this massive building and most of it you don't even use for anything useful. Alright, let's walk around. We have a giant fountain, just taking up space, not being useful.
Good day, officer.
We have offices. Oh, this is fun. So they're shredding all the evidence. All the evidence of their misdeeds, they're going through and shredding all the papers. On the wall we have a painting of a Swedish forest, I suppose. I mean, it is the Swedish embassy, so I guess it should feel a little bit like Sweden, even though we are in the desert. Nothing remarkable about the office. We have a desk, we have some sitting areas, we have some filing cabinets.
How are you, Lieutenant?
Pretty unremarkable. Here we have auditorium. Auditorium there. It's not really an auditorium though, so if we go in, it's not a great shape for an auditorium. So what they've got here is they've got an exhibition set up, or the half set up, and then they've got like a TV studio temporarily in this place, I guess. Is this a permanent stage or a temporary stage? I'm not sure. I feel like this is more like an exhibition hall than an auditorium, but they do have acoustic panels on the walls. So like, it's kind of neither here nor there, because as an auditorium, it's not a good shape for acoustics, and it's not really a good shape for audience either. Like, where would the audience be? All around? Or where would the stage be? Would the stage be on one end? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how they would really make this work as an auditorium. The shape's not quite right. The acoustic panels, so these things, how do acoustic panels work? The purpose of these acoustic panels is to prevent direct reflection of the sounds, direct echoes. So if you like yell into this surface, the fact that the surface is curved will make the sound dissipate in all different directions. Whereas if you have a flat concrete wall and you yell straight at the wall, the sound will bounce straight back at you, and you get an echo, right? So to reduce the echo, you have these wavy patterns on the walls to dissipate the sound. Now you might think, okay, but if you want the wavy panels to dissipate the sound, why is it only there and not along the entire wall? Well, the thing is, if you're mostly speaking at standing height, then you really only need to stop the reflection of the sound at head height, because the sound that goes down will bounce into the floor. The sound that goes up will bounce into the ceiling, right? So that sound is not really reflecting back at you. The sound that comes straight from your mouth, straight level, that's the sound that bounces straight back at you. And so that's really the sound that you really need to dissipate. The other sound bouncing around, you don't need to deal with that as much. So that's how these acoustic panels work, if you're wondering. Oh, the ceiling's interesting, look at that. So the ceiling is glass again, and as I said, glass ceiling in desert, bad idea. But they did make an effort to put some shade on the ceiling. So the idea of these vertical tubes is that the sun, if the sun is at an angle, then the shade will block Like the vertical bits will block the sun from coming straight down. And so that provides shade, so you don't get direct sun, but you get skylight. The problem is we're in Morocco, right? And we are kind of closer to the equator than Europe. And I don't think those shapes are deep enough to provide shade in the summer. Like in the summer in Morocco, the sun will be high enough in the sky, I think, to just come straight through. So I don't think that actually works. If the shapes, like if those hexagons are deeper, maybe like 3 times as deep, then I'd be more confident about it actually blocking the sun. But as they are, I'm not sure that they do block the sun. But I do like this design, by the way. I like the idea of vertical shade, where you can see the sky, but you don't get sunlight, or you don't get direct sunlight. So that's a very fancy way to manage sunlight. Okay, so that's the auditorium. Let's keep walking. Back out here again. the glass roof. Oh man, but you're basically turning your building into a greenhouse, and you're already in a desert. What it means is that you have massive air conditioning bills, right? You have to pay for crazy air conditioning, to the extent that I'm not even sure air conditioning can keep up with the amount of heat that this building collects. I mean, like there's some token shades. You can see the vertical things that there's like, I guess we're gonna shade the sun. That's not gonna stop the sun. Not in Morocco, not in summer. That's not gonna that's not gonna stop anything. Yeah, I don't know, but that's a bad idea. But it does reinforce the arrogance, the absolute arrogance of this architecture. Thinking you can do this in the desert and get away with it. You know what I mean? You're just thinking you can get away with this in the desert. Unbelievable. It's fun to hate this building. I'm telling you, it's really great. Alright. We have a security room in here. Not too much to say about that, just a bunch of monitors, right? As we come back to the front of the building, let me just walk around this way. So here we have archives, I think, or at least there's a lot of shelves for paperwork. A lot of cabinets for paperwork. I think this is the embassy's archive. Interesting that they put it right in the middle of the building though. And then there's stairs down. This goes down to the car park. I'm not gonna go down there just yet, but we will later on. Oh, look at that. That's Sweden. A snowy Swedish landscape, completely out of place in the desert. Alright, so here we're back in the lobby. It's just a big empty space. Floating stairs. So, and these architectural magic tricks. So, I mean, you know how this works, right? The staircase, like, it's supported by the stairs and the stairs. But the magic trick is, it looks like it's just floating, right? It looks like it's defying gravity. Obviously it's not defying gravity, but it looks like it is. So this architectural trickery, and this stuff, the column goes through a hole in the floor, so the column doesn't actually hold up the floor, the column goes past the floor. So what's holding up the floor? Ah, magic! Magic is holding up the floor. Maybe the stairs are holding up the floor, and then those walls are holding up the floor. But not the column. It's so obnoxious. Obnoxious architectural trickery.
Hey, officer, have a good one.
Ah, it's so fun to hate this building. Look at it. And it's off-center. I don't know about this part. The columns aren't even centered in the holes. I don't know what this means. I haven't figured out why. I don't know if that's like a mistake, or if it's deliberately obnoxious. I can't tell. Either way, it is extremely annoying that the column is not centered in the hole. But none of the columns are centered. It might be a mistake. It might be a design mistake in the video game, because that doesn't make any sense. We have some pine trees from Sweden. I guess. Okay, on this side we have a canteen over here. This is good. People need food. We have a canteen and a kitchen. And then behind the kitchen, I guess we have pantries. Alright, nothing too remarkable. This is back in the corridor again, at the back of the building.
Okay, officer.
So here's the canteen, and then at this corner of the building we have
Yes.
another office.
And I'm still not doing it. Forget about
Nothing remarkable about this
Landlord
office.
guy is? How
No,
dollars do you
no, nothing remarkable about the office. And then, what's this? I think this is a toilet. What is this? This is toilets. Nothing remarkable about the toilets. Okay, let's go. Let's go upstairs. Have to be a little bit careful upstairs because we are trespassing apparently. Oh, don't get spotted. So up here you can see more clearly. There's like a raised roof in the middle of the lobby. And then you have windows up there. So that's a much better way to get some light in here without being exposed to the sun, as opposed to just having a glass roof, which is a terrible idea in the desert. Having like a raised ceiling and then windows up there, it's a much better way to get some light in here. And you can see there's all these louvers to keep the sun out, to keep out the direct sunlight, but still let the skylight in. So that's much more sensible than some of the other skylights in the building. I like that part. Back here we have toilet. We have more glass ceiling. Obnoxious. Arrogant glass ceilings. And office. And then through here, more office. Right. Oh, is that the Morocco flag and the Swedish flag? I think this is the ambassador's office. And then out this way. So here's the UFO. We were down there. There's the gate, right? There's the front entrance. We were looking up here from down there before. You know, from here... Interesting how in the game they made it so that you can't hear the shouting. So those protesters, remember they were making a lot of noise down there. But from here you can't hear them. I can't hear your screaming over the sound of my arrogance. Very funny. Alright, so you're just watching these people get angry while you're up here in your spaceship. It's deliberate. It's a deliberate design choice, right? To have this contrast between the old city and the new embassy, right? The old Moroccan traditional architecture and this new modern international architecture, and the sharp contrast and the fact that they're like clearly facing off, literally facing off against each other. It's deliberate. And it reinforces the narrative of the game about the conflict between the Swedish embassy and the corrupt international foreigners versus the locals who are getting ripped off. Alright, the other side we have more office. That makes sense in an embassy. Although I do have to say, there's not enough filing cabinets. And look at this. The lack of filing cabinets have caused these people to just dump their files on the ground. Usually there's a lot of filing cabinets in offices. Even though, you know, this is what is 2024. We have computers, we should have digitized everything. Nevertheless, we have a photocopier here and people are still printing pages and pages and pages and just dumping them next to their desk because there's no filing cabinets in the office. This room is a massage room. I don't know if it's temporary or if they've just set up a permanent massage room in the embassy. There is something very Swedish about a massage room at work. Alright, maybe it's more a stereotype than a real thing, but it feels Swedish. Up here, remember this, the auditorium. So we have some lights and audio controls. And then here we have the upstairs of the auditorium. Again, I'm not too sure about how well this functions as an auditorium. Let's get back out. This room is a meeting room. They call this a boardroom, right? The boardroom is not where the board lives, it's where they do board meetings. Boardroom and a nice panorama of somewhere in Sweden, I suppose. It's very interesting that there's like zero Moroccan influence in here. Like, it's like you're back in Sweden. You just completely don't care about the local environment. And there's reindeers. There's reindeers on the walls. Ah, glass ceiling again. Unbelievable. Alright, and then we're back in the lobby again. So that's the Swedish embassy. It's half empty space and half offices, basically, and that's it. The fact that half of it is just empty space is very funny to me. So we're gonna go downstairs from the back down to the main level and then down again. We have basement storage. Oh, the pretentiousness has disappeared. It's just plain concrete now. And the car park. All right. Oh, thank goodness. We're out of this. We are finally away from the obnoxious modern architecture upstairs. So now this is just the parking lot. There's a lot of military people here, by the way, because there's a protest outside and they're expecting, well, they're preparing for riots, I think.
Sir, all clear, sir.
So they have military protection. There are some rooms in the middle of the car park. I'm not too sure what this is about, but there's another storage room here. And then there's an office here. This is really strange. There's an office in the car park, and the office desk blocks the door. I don't know what this means. Why the office desk blocks the door?
True area of expertise lies in.
This is the staircase back up to the archive room. And then on the other side of the car park we have tools. A lot of tools. So I think this means they have like a mechanic on site, maybe. They might have a mechanic permanently on site. And maybe that's the mechanic's office, and then this is his tools, and then he just fixes cars, maybe. There's no facilities for fixing cars though, so I'm not too sure what's going on with this. Although having said that, embassies kinda have to be a little bit self-sufficient, because something might happen, especially if you're the American embassy. If you're the American embassy, you might have things happen where you need to be self-sufficient. For example, if you were the American embassy in Iran, if you're not familiar, look up the siege of the American embassy in Tehran. But you know, if the locals suddenly decide they don't like you, they might besiege your embassy, and then you need to be self-sufficient for a little while. So it might make sense to have engineers and mechanics on site, not just for the cars, but also for the machinery in the building. Having like an independent supply of electricity, water, food if possible, and communications is kind of important. Not much of that is seen here, but Just stuff to think about if you're designing an embassy. For us though, we're gonna come down here into a secret tunnel.
Right that way, sir.
So the idea is that there is a secret escape tunnel to get out of the embassy if you're besieged for some reason. I don't know why would that happen. So if for some reason you piss off the locals and you're besieged and you need to run away from the embassy, they have pre-prepared an escape tunnel. Why would you pre-prepare something like this? It means you were already planning to be an asshole.
Hey to you, Sergeant.
You will notice that this is new concrete, not historic architecture. So we are under the historic city, but this is not a historic tunnel. This is a new tunnel that at some point has been dug underneath the city. Which I don't think really makes any sense because it's quite difficult to dig a tunnel underneath other people's houses and not have them notice. Especially since we're not that deep. We're only like another story underground. So as you dig, there's going to be vibrations and noise in the ground and people are going to notice. And also this tunnel, it's not a round tunnel, so it's not a boring machine. What this tunnel looks like, it looks like they dug a trench and then put a top on it. Because that's what happens when you, if you do that, then you end up with straight walls and a concrete slab on top is when you dig a trench in the ground and you just put a concrete top on it. But obviously you can't do that in the old city because to do that you would have to demolish the things above. So if you're not going to demolish the buildings above, then you can't trench and roof. So the tunnel is a little bit unexplained. I'm not sure what's going on. I guess you can dig this out with machines or even dig it out by hand, but it will be strange to square it off and then try to cast concrete above you. That's not... Concrete is liquid, right? You know how concrete is made. You make a mold, you pour the concrete and it fills the shape. You can't pour onto the ceiling because gravity goes the other way. So how would you get a concrete slab on top of you? You have to lower it from above. But to lower it from above, you have to dig down from above, and this building is above. So how do you do that? So this tunnel is a little bit mysterious, by which I mean it doesn't make any sense. It might just be an oversight, a design oversight. Like they probably just didn't think about it when they made the map. But if you're like digging a tunnel with a boring machine, it'll be a circular tunnel. And then you would like maybe flatten the ground. Otherwise, digging a square tunnel is extremely unusual. At the very least, you'll have a rounded ceiling. Alright, so at the other end of the tunnel, we come back out, and we are back in the old city. Look at that. Like, we're literally just one story underground. There's no way you can do this without people noticing. We have a back courtyard of some sort. This is a shoe shop, by the way. So we're out the shoe shop. And back in the city. Another courtyard in the middle of the city. So just so we're not too confused, here's the map, right? So we started here. This is the Shisha Cafe. This is the market square. The gate is there. And then the consulate is back here. And the tunnel goes from here, the garage, and then back out to here. The shoe shop is there, so now we're here. So the markets are over there. The consulate square is there, right? And if we follow the path out this way, the consulate square is right there. So there's the embassy, as we said. There's the old city gate there. We have some camel sculptures. Cute. Right, so that's where we are. Now the final part of this map, we have a school in this direction. Although before we get to the school, we have more gates. Not sure what's going on with these gates, but that's kind of impressive. Look at that. There's like a gate there, and then immediately there's another gate here. Not sure this actually makes any sense. Because usually you have a wall, and then you have gates along the wall, right? So I'm not sure what's going on here, but... cool, I guess. And then there's another gate there. This one's quite fancy too, look at that. Look at those carvings. Oh, look at that pattern up there, look at that. Look at that. I think they just made a bunch of gates and they didn't know how to use them. And they just put them all here. Like they all put them all in this little corner of the map. And then there's this thing too, look at this, this is cool, there's a little fountain. That's pretty. But why is it here? Why is it not somewhere else? I don't know. I think they just made a bunch of stuff and they put them all here because they want to use the assets. Alright. This building is the school. The school is quite modern and quite modest, right? There's no real ornamentation. It's a modern school. Let's go. Oh, the school has been taken over by these soldiers, by the way. Before I go inside, a word about soldiers and schools. So first of all, military using schools is a war crime, I believe. Because you're putting kids in danger. So you're not supposed to have soldiers take over schools. But having said that, schools are surprisingly well suited to military use. So there's a number of features that schools have that militaries love. Schools usually have a decent water supply, and the school itself is designed to support a lot of people because you have like hundreds of students, right? And so you have enough toilets, enough water. In a lot of cases, you have canteens, and then you have all these classrooms. They're just big empty rooms that you can use for anything. And sometimes schools have showers because you have like gymnasiums and the showers. So the gymnasium is a big hall if you need to do something in the hall. And then you have a big schoolyard, like a big open space, a schoolyard that you can do military drills or anything else you want. So schools have a lot of things that suit military usage. And so that's why in wars, unfortunately, a lot of the times soldiers will set themselves up in schools because the school basically have everything they need except for the guns. They bring their own guns. Except for the guns, a school is perfectly suited to be converted into a military facility. And so that's why schools end up being occupied by soldiers whenever there's a war. Let's go inside. Oh man, bullet holes. Bullet holes on school walls. Sad. As we come in here, look at that, the ceiling's falling down. So the school is in serious disrepair, and I'm not sure what this means. I mean, it could mean one of two things. It could mean that the school was already in bad shape before the military arrived, in which case, that's not good. Maybe the school was abandoned, who knows. Alternatively, the soldiers took over, they stopped maintaining it, and enough time has passed for things to start falling apart, in which case the military have been here for many, many years. That doesn't seem to make sense. Like, why would the military stay here for many years? Because the point of occupying a school is that it's a temporary facility, right? So I'm not sure what this means. I think it probably means that the school was already abandoned and something terrible has happened. And given that there's like bullet holes throughout the city and like all the plasters falling off, maybe the implication is that this has been a war zone at some point in the recent past. But it's not clear that that's the case because there's a lot of people here. Like a lot of people are living relatively normal lives in the city, and so if there was a war here recently, maybe it wouldn't be like that. Like none of the people have amputations or war wounds. I mean, it's morbid to think about, but you know, if there was a war here, the people look too healthy for that. So I don't know what that means. I don't know why it's like this. Except that, anyway, if you look at a school and you see this, you can tell that something terrible has happened. I'm not sure it quite fits the setting, though. I'm just trying to figure this part out. I mean, it could just be like the African stereotype. I mean, there's always wars in Africa. What do you mean? It's Africa. There's always a war going. That's not actually what happens in Africa. But there's this stereotype that there's always some sort of coup, always some sort of revolution going on in Africa. That's a bad stereotype, so don't fall into that. But it's kind of funny, but also kind of annoying, right? All right, let's walk around the school. First of all, in the center we have a courtyard. The courtyard is unremarkable. I guess this is like the assembly area or something, although it is outdoors. Not sure how pleasant that would be in the day. Class 1C has been ransacked and turned into an armory, I believe. This is ammunition. Alright, so this classroom has been turned into the armory. And then this classroom is just not used for anything useful. Just a couple of dudes standing around doing nothing. Oh. A hole in the wall? Not sure what happened there. I mean, it could be implied that there was a firefight in the school, right? Maybe the school was taken over by one faction of the military, and then the other faction came and attacked them and chased them out and took over. And so maybe a lot of this damage is actually battle damage. It looks like water damage, it looks like it kind of stains and mold and that, but maybe it's actually supposed to be battle damage. It's possible. We have this classroom in which nothing's happening. I don't know what's going on there.
Chest hair, right? Come on.
Alright, on the other side of the school... Oh, this place. So this is an interrogation room, or it's been turned into an interrogation room. There's a prisoner there, and he's being interrogated. That's a euphemism. So, at first glance, you might think that's a really big room for interrogations. Why do you need such a big room with one dude? You don't really need such a big room for one dude. But that might be part of the interrogation technique, right? Because, you know, psychologically speaking, is what I mean. When you're blindfolded, you can still hear. And you can kind of hear the size of the room. Like, especially if somebody else is walking around or talking in the room, you can kind of hear how big the room is. And so when you're in a big room, you feel like, even if you're blindfolded, you feel like you're in this empty space. Like in the middle of nowhere. And partly, the big room will insulate the subject, the interrogation subject, from noises in the other parts of the school. And so you'll feel isolated from the outside world. And that might be part of the psychological technique of interrogating. Like you can, you know, talk to him from a distance and he'll hear that you're in the distance. And then you might sneak up on him.
Damn it, think.
And then you might suddenly yell into his ear, and so he thinks you're far away, and then suddenly you're yelling in his, and so you can kind of imagine like the interrogation shenanigans going on here, right? So even though it seems like a waste of space to put one prisoner in a giant empty room, actually maybe that's part of the psychological stuff you're trying to do to him, right? Don't do that to anyone. Don't torture people in real life, you guys. I'm just telling you about it. Don't actually do it. Next door, we have a printing press. The wall's been completely blown open. So, printing press in the game, in the story, what's going on is that these soldiers are printing posters and riling up the protesters outside. Now remember, it's the same soldiers were in the basement of the embassy protecting the embassy, and the soldiers are also printing posters riling up the protesters. You see what's going on? So the protesters are being riled up by the soldiers, and the embassy, whom the protesters are protesting against, the embassy is also protected by the soldiers. So these soldiers, they're playing both sides, basically. That's the story. Isn't that cool? So that's a lot of fun. Oh, and by the way, this is probably not a good place for the printing press. It's on the ground floor, so it's good, because the printing press moves, because it's a machine. But also it makes a lot of noise, and so when the printing press is going, the guy next door is going to hear it, especially since the wall is not exactly intact. And so the printing press would interfere with the interrogations. So you know what I said before about the big empty room and interrogation shenanigans? Putting the printing press right next door is probably a bad idea for that. Out here we have, on the schoolyard, we have some camouflage netting. Camouflaging an APC. Not too sure what they do. Oh, are they doing firing practice? I guess they are.
Excuse me.
Alright, he's doing a firing practice against that wall there. And we have a big ass NPC. Nobody plays on these swings anymore. I think this is deliberate. Like the juxtaposition between the children's playground and the big ass NPC blocking everything. Ah, sad. War crimes, am I right? Oh, we have another gate here. Do you think that can fit through the gate? I guess so. Like the APC barely fits through the gate. This is a giant truck. And no, I guess it fits. If you're careful, it fits. If you're not careful, you just smash a hole in the wall. Anything else to say about the yard? No. Okay, let's go back inside.
Presents arms.
Interesting that they haven't repurposed the blackboards. Like the blackboard still has teaching written on it instead of like military notes. Okay, so let's go upstairs. The school does have 2 floors. Upstairs we have more classrooms. This one is sort of an armory. There's a whole bunch of ammo there. Oh right, desks and computers and maps. I think this is either the war room or the intelligence room, or maybe a bit of both. So we've set up a bunch of computers here. I guess this is where the smart stuff happens. By which I mean intelligence. And then the next room is toilets. The toilets are completely busted, so that's a bad idea. The soldiers need to poop. They are human after all. They need to poop somewhere. So busting up the toilets is a bad idea because where are they gonna poop now? You really don't want to bust up the toilets. If there's one thing you want to fix in this building, it's the toilets. The water and the toilets. If either of those don't work, it's gonna be real difficult to occupy this place because you have to find somewhere to put the poop. Yeah, no, I mean, they should fix this. So this might be unrealistic. The fact that the toilet is completely busted up. And there's no other toilets either, so I don't know where the soldiers poop. But you do want to have somewhere for them to poop, because if they just poop anywhere, then that's a bad time for everybody. Dormitory 2A? Why does it have a dormitory label on it? So we have dormitory here, a bunch of sleeping bags on the floor. Sleeping beds? Not even like makeshift beds? I guess they're not here for very long. Although they have a lot of stuff throughout the school. There's a few mixed signals here, right? You would think they would set up some cots or something. But no, they're just sleeping on the ground. We have bottled water. Right, get out of the way. Dismiss, dismiss.
You're dismissed. General Satan's order.
He actually blocks the door, by the way.
Yes, sir.
Dude,
Thank
get
you,
out of
sir.
here. Move. I'm trying to do architecture. Stop talking to me. Alright, thank you. In this classroom, we have a whole lot of nothing. And then here we have a mess hall, I guess. We have water, we have tables,
Officers Club tonight, sir?
we have some food. We have some food. There's no cooking facilities. Not sure what that's about. Maybe that's just
Sir,
an
yes, sir.
oversight. Like there's food supplies, but there's nowhere to cook anything. Militaries don't have to have cooking facilities. They have ready-to-eat meals. It's not good to eat those long term, though. If you can, you would want to cook, but there's no cooking facilities. But there is a mess hall. And then here we have director. This is the principal's office, which has been taken over by the general. The general is not here anymore. And in fact, the principal's office is kind of empty and small. Interesting. Again, you would expect more filing cabinets. I mean, there are a few, but not as many as you might imagine. Alright, so that is the school. Or rather, the school that has been taken over by the soldiers and turned into a makeshift barracks. It's kind of interesting, actually, to see that. And there are a few bits and pieces that I think are not exactly realistic. But to see military occupation of a school is maybe something interesting. Alright, so let's get back into the city. Let's get back to the main gate, in fact. I'm gonna continue walking around counterclockwise around the map. So this gets us back to where we started. Remember this? With the electronics part of the market? We started the game from there, right? In fact, let's not go the same way. Let's go the other way. Let's go this
How are you,
way.
sir?
We have more shops. We have a bit of a food place. What kind of food are you? Oh, buns? Nice. Nice buns, bro. And then we have more pottery, more lamps, more ceramics. Just general shops, right?
Salam! I am so honored by
And
your
then we come back out into the main market. Shisha Cafe again. Alright, and that's the whole map. Obviously Marrakesh is not this small, but this is as much of Marrakesh as we get to see in the game. Coming back to the embassy. Alright, so what's one of my final thoughts? Final thoughts. So again, this is not the real Marrakesh, but it clearly draws inspiration from the real Marrakesh. And aside from the Swedish embassy in front of us, aside from that part, it's a fairly decent portrayal of Marrakesh. So if you can't go to Marrakesh, actually no, this is not. You won't feel the heat and you won't smell the market. Maybe no. I was gonna say, well, maybe play the game. It's kind of like going to Marrakesh. No, it's not. It's not like going to Marrakesh. What you need to do is go to Marrakesh and smell the market. That's the real Marrakesh. Unfortunately, video games don't do smells yet. But just imagine the spices, the food, the bread, the spices, more spices, the fruit. Also, the lack of maintenance on the buildings, the fact that all the plaster is busted, that's not the real Marrakesh. Let me just go back. Oh, let's go to Google Maps, right? So let's go to Google Maps and we just zoom in. Oh no, there's no street view, right? I tried to go to street view, but there isn't any street view in Marrakesh. Apparently Google hasn't done the street view thing. But if we just kind of look at some pictures, oh, look at that, 61,000 photos. So the real Marrakesh, the plaster is not busted. The plaster is actually quite nice. Right, everything is actually clean and not broken. Like, I don't really know why they chose to do that in the video game. So this is the real Marrakesh. Ah, look at that at night. Look how nice that is. Oh, look at that guy. He's so happy to sell you. Are those sweets? Sweet breads? Ah, you know, the video game does not do the real Marrakesh justice. You need to go to those shops and you need to eat that food, is what I'm telling you. It's alright, so the real Marrakesh, it's better than what you have in the game. You can actually eat the food. The Swedish embassy, I believe, is completely fictional. The location of it is definitely completely fictional, right? There's no way anyone's gonna allow you to build that monstrosity right next to the city gate like that, especially since the city gate is a main attraction. But in the game, it does do a really good job of setting up that conflict and drama by contrasting the architectural styles, right? Like the concrete UFO versus the old stone city, like that contrast is so sharp and so strong, and that just tells the whole story of what's going on here. That's great. It's great, great narrative through architecture, right? It's good. And the fact that the modern style of the embassy is so incredibly obnoxious in every part, like even the little details, like how the columns hold up the floors, is so obnoxious. It's really good. Alright, well, this is the end of this video. I still need to eliminate Klaus Hugo Strandberg though, so let's go ahead and eliminate Klaus real quick. Where am I? There it is.
Both targets down.
Oh, there he
Head
is.
towards an exit.
Okay, so let me head to the exit. In the next video, we are going to Bangkok, Thailand, where we go visit a nice fancy hotel. Where's the exit? Back here? Alright, see you next time in Bangkok.